Well, good morning. Welcome back to my workbench. My name is Erica, and I'm so happy that you're here today. Do you remember a couple weeks ago, I gave you two videos on a weekend about two MS261s that I took on trade and I kind of got burnt on. Do you remember those? If you forgot, I'll post a little clip right here to remind you. Look at the crankcase. And there is what's left of our crank bearing. If you had just went out and bought this 261 on Facebook Marketplace, would you be happy right now? I wouldn't be. I see 261s in my area posted for $300, $400, $500. They just need a tune-up. They just need the carb clean. Probably needs a new air filter. Can you imagine paying $300 or $400 or $500 for this chainsaw? Well, did that jog your memory? So in the comments, many of you requested that I bring those saws back to the bench and try to make one running saw out of the pair of them. So today, we're going to bring both those saws back up, and between the two saws, and if we need any parts from the crypt, we're going to try to make one running chainsaw. Well, we have our work cut out for us, so let's get started. These two boxes came in the mail this week. That's a big Ego box. I have no idea what's in there. And this Home Depot box, to Erica, happy anniversary. We're going to have to open these and see. When I look at a saw but don't repair it, what I usually do is put it in a box. I keep these new chainsaw boxes for this reason. So here are my two 261s that we looked at 2 weekends ago. I just write in the box, YouTube, when it was published. This was a 261 non-Mtronic. This was saw number 1 that we looked at with the bad crank bearings. And saw number 2 that had bad crank seals and a broken cylinder fin. So these are the two saws we want to make one out of. Another saw sitting here. That's just a 271 with bad crank bearings, not scored. There was no video about this one. But I do this so that when I need parts and go looking, everything from the saw is in the box. I know why it's in the box and if there was a video made about it. So here is our two saws. What a mess. I pulled this 271 out of the crypt because I thought that the piston in this saw might work in our 261 rebuild. I was gonna take it apart with you and take a look at it, but I did some research, and this is a newer 271. I believe the older 271s share a piston with the 261, but not that one. So we're not gonna waste our time tearing the piston out of that thing, but that's why I have it up here. So we have a mismatch of parts here. We're going to use the bottom end from saw number 2. I'm not sure what piston we're going to use. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about here, 2 weekends ago, I posted the teardown of this saw on Saturday and the teardown of this saw on Sunday. I'll put a link here up in the corner and down below in the comments so you can go back and watch these two videos, and then you'll see what's happening here. I took both these saws on trade-in, and they both supposedly ran and cut, which they don't. We are going to try to make one wreck out of 2 wrecks. So let's get started. So this is a saw we took apart, the second saw, not the one with the crank bearings. This is the one with the good bottom end. I have all my notes. As I work on these saws, I try to take notes so that I can remember when I go back. what I found and what I did. That is the piston out of the other saw, 261 number 1. So we'll just call these saws number 1 and number 2 to keep this simple. Number 2, which was the Sunday video, had the aftermarket recoil, the aftermarket coil, broken cylinder, leaking crank seal. You probably remember this. So we're going to use the bottom end of this saw to start this rebuild. We're going to pretend that I went out and bought these chainsaws because I have wood to cut and I spent my last dollar buying these. I got home and realized that both of these saws are complete wrecks. I can't afford a new saw. I can't afford to buy many parts to fix these saws. So we are going to do our best to make one running saw here using these two and buying only what's necessary. This is going to be tons of fun. I hope you're ready. So let me grab this carcass and I'll meet you over at the workbench and we'll pull the cylinder off of this thing. Wreck number 2 on the bench. A viewer did send me some of these metal trays. So we'll use that today and put our hardware in it. And I'll show you what I use one of the bigger trays for. You can't see this because it sits over here out of view, but I have this big one and I keep all my common pressure vac tools in it. This little stuff that I reach for all the time. So I'm going to seal this saw up and we're going to take this thing outside and we're going to clean it before I pull the cylinder off of it. So we're going to block the exhaust port up. I need to put the decompression valve back in and we'll plug the intake up. Give this thing a good cleaning. That's probably just the quickest and easiest way to seal that intake up. And then over that porthole, I just put this little cap on just to keep water out of there. Okay, spark plug. It's in there, but it's not tight, so we'll just tighten it. And the decompression valve should be in my parts box. Let me walk over there. Here's everything that came off of that saw. It's bar and chain, top cover, muffler. And then I bag up the carb parts. There's its air filter. And there's everything else. Oil pump. And there's our decompression valve right there. There we go. Okay, now just the exhaust port. I just put my block off plate on there. Seal that up. We are sealed up. I'm going to pull the recoil off, the coil off, all of this stuff, and we're going to take this thing outside and pressure wash it. I think that's some sort of Amazon recoil. So somebody put this aftermarket coil on it. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to check the gap. It's actually, the gap is, there isn't enough gap. I can't even get the feeler in there. It's too close. Interesting. We'll take that plastic air induction thing out. Husky copycats. And there is our Amazon coil, maybe. Let's pop that flywheel off. And there's a handy little tool right there. 5910 893 0801. So you can see the rubbing on the side of the flywheel. And here's the coil we took off it. And you can see the rubbing on that. So these were too close together. Okay, well that side is ready for cleaning. We'll take all of this stuff off. I will keep some stuff in here, but I kind of like keeping the hardware with whatever I took the hardware out of. So I don't know, I just find it easier to keep myself sorted out that way. Safety glasses on. That little rubber piece is part of the oiling system, and I don't want to lose it, so we'll just pull it out. It came out of that hole right there by my finger. Put it in the tray so we don't lose it. And I'm going to plug the oil line hole up. Tyler kept taking my flashlight, so I got this new one from Echo when I was ordering parts this week. See how this works. It's got a light and it's got a pointer. So the rubber oil line there, I'm just going to put that in it just to plug it up. So I've got that in there to block that line off. That hole doesn't matter. When we're all done this, we'll just blow through it and make sure it's clear. Brake band we'll leave in there. I guess I'll go outside and wash this thing. And by we, I mean Tyler. I'll give you one last look at this filthy thing. And out she goes. Okay, we're back in from cleaning. So between the two saws, I chose the top cover that was in the best condition, not cracked. The best looking clutch cover. The other one was cracked. This one looks to be okay. The OEM recoil off of saw number 1, crank bearing saw. And the brake handle on the saw that we're working on is actually broken 2 places. This one's broken 1 place. So I guess we'll use this one. It's the better of the broken. And all that stuff just cleaned up. Well, there. How does that look? It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. Under all that dirt, it's not in terrible condition. Okay, well, let's pull that cylinder off. Just pull my tools back off of this thing. Okay, pressure vac tools are removed. I'm just going to pull that spike off so I don't stab myself with it. Let's just pull the handle off this. It'll make it easier to work on. All right, let's fight that out of there. But first, let's take that chain catcher off. It's only been whacked a few times. Handle's off. We're going to take the brake handle off. It's actually broke on both sides. Let's get the brake band out. And there's a little clip right there we're going to remove. Okay, we've got 4 cylinder bolts to loosen. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this cylinder bolt back here in the left corner is missing. Interesting. So we have 3 cylinder bolts to remove. Just unhooked the fuel line, separated it from this. Now this should all pull off. I'm going to get this thing out of our way. I'm going to push these wires through the crankcase, and then we'll just pull that off. Then we don't have to work around it. Okay, get that out of there. Well, that piston is not in good condition. And I see other problems here too. Let me get this piston out of the way. Let's pull that circlip out of there. Okay, circlip is out. Okay, let's knock that wrist pin out of there. Okay, well, what do we think about this piston? It's in terrible condition. I don't know, I wouldn't really feel right using that. So that is the piston out of saw number 2. What's the piston out of saw number 1 look like? That fly. Like, I don't think it's as bad, but it's not great. I mean, which one do you choose? They're both garbage. I don't have any other pistons. I don't have any 261 saws for parts that have a good piston. Any 271s that I have are too new and the pistons won't work. I just went and looked up this saw from Stihl, and I can't order just the piston. It would come as a piston cylinder kit for $549. I'm definitely not doing that. This is kind of what I was afraid of. And that's not the end of our trouble. The big end has been overheated. It's all blue. I wonder if you can see that. Let me zoom in. I think you can see that. This thing's been hot. And on top of that, let me show you something else, or let you listen to something else. What do we think about that now? So my plan here was to pull that piston and cylinder off, flush that crankcase out, and then start putting this chainsaw back together. But here we are at another roadblock. The parts to fix this thing are incredibly expensive. A crankshaft for this saw from Stihl is $490. Just think about this. $490 for a new crankshaft, $549 for a piston and cylinder. This chainsaw, you can go buy a brand new one for less than that. What am I going to do now? Well, we're already this far into it. Let's just autopsy it, and then we'll make a decision. I probably should have given up on this thing already, but I just can't give up yet. Let's get the tank off of this thing. Let's get this white piece of plastic out of here, and we're going to split this case. That stupid thing. Piece of plastic off. Air guide shroud is the technical name. And there is our tank. I don't remember if we dumped the bar oil. There might be a little bit in there. No, not much, just a few drops. Oh, that was the used motor oil in this one. Can't wait to have that all over my workbench. Okay, well, there's what we are down to. So we have 5 bolts holding this thing together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get them all out and split this thing apart. When I ordered my new Echo flashlight, I also ordered this new T27 T-handle. I seen Donnie Walker using one of these. He likes them because they're weighted at the top and you can get a nice spin on them. I got that one, and I got one that's a bit longer. That one has the Echo part number on it, 33027. And the big one does not have a part number. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5. One, two, three, 4, 5. You want to make sure they're all out before you start splitting this, or you will do some damage. Okay, we'll use this tool again. I used this last time. 502 516 101. I bought this from Husqvarna. You can get these aftermarket. They're pretty affordable. Okay, so we've got that on the crankshaft. if you didn't have all your bolts out, you'd be cranking on this, wondering why it wasn't coming apart, and probably break something. Let's get that used motor oil wiped up. Okay, so here is the clutch side case. There's our bearing. Let me put my mic up so you can hear it. It's intact, but it's loud. That's no good. So we have a good case half here that needs a new bearing and, of course, the crank seal. Now, do you remember the last time we autopsied a 261? I grabbed the crankshaft and it just popped right out of the case half, and I should have had to pull it out. So we'll use the puller to take this other side apart. Oh, okay, we don't need the puller. Look at all that. Looks like rust, doesn't it? I should have had to use a puller to get that out of there. See, this one doesn't pull out like that. And we'll use the same tool to pop this side out. There's our crankshaft out. And more used engine oil. So there is our Stihl crankshaft. So the small end bearing, the wrist pin bearing, is replaceable, and it's in poor condition, but you can replace it. The bearing in the big end is not replaceable. I mean, if you were a machinist and had the proper equipment, you probably could take this apart and replace it. I'm not equipped to do that, but somewhere in a factory, someone put this together, so there's probably a way. But you can see how this thing has been overheated. Now the big question is, how is the crankshaft in saw number 1 with the bad crank bearings? Let me go grab it and let's take a look. And here's the crankshaft that we took out of saw number 1 about a week ago. And that was the one that had the disintegrated crank bearing. You can see the damage on the crankshaft here from that bearing. But you can see how this one doesn't show signs of overheating. Let me put them side by side here so you can see overheated. And that is the proper color. Now you may also remember that when I went to pull this off of the flywheel side of the case, I didn't have to pull it out, it just fell out. So that means the problem is either here or the problem is the bearing. So here is the case off of saw number 1, and this just shouldn't do that. You should have to press those in and push them out. So is the problem the crankshaft or is the problem that bearing? Let me try. Here's the case half. We just took that out of. I know this is getting confusing. I can't push it into that one. So the problem must be in that bearing. We've got a real mess in our hands here. Cylinders, pistons, overheated crankshafts, damaged crankshaft. How am I going to make one saw out of this mess? The crankshaft that we took out of saw number 1 with the bad crank bearing, I think is okay, but the inner race of the bad crank bearing is still on there. Can we get it off? Tyler, can you get that off? I'm going to hand this over to him and see what he thinks.
All right, after monkeying around, I got this bearing puller sitting on the inner race of the bearing. And I'm just going to tighten it in. It's coming off fairly easily. So didn't have to heat it up or anything. It's been a while since I had to do this. If I was making a tool like this, all the nuts would be the same size. There we go.
Oh, Tyler, thank you so much. I don't know what we would do without you. Well, looky here. We have two 261s completely tore down. Looking at these two crankshafts, obviously they're identical. They both say Stihl. They both say 1141. This one says LK, and this one NB. Does that something to do with the date when these were made, maybe? Not really sure. So we obviously need new crank bearings. And I thought that 260s and 261 shared a crank bearing. I looked it up, and they do not. They're different part numbers. So what am I going to do here? Am I able to make one saw out of this mess? This is the best crankshaft I have, and it has some slight damage to one side. No matter what, I'm unable to put this together without buying some new parts. We need bearings. We need crank seals. Both these pistons, I don't see why we could use either of them. To me, they're both trash. Oh, what to do? Is it time to box this crap up and get rid of it? Or do I order the few things that I would need and do a reassembly? Tell me in the comments, what would you do? You went and bought these on Facebook Marketplace. You have no running chainsaws. This is what you have. What are you going to do with it? Well, what kind of mess have I got myself into now? Here we are with two MS261s completely tore apart. I took both these saws on trade-in. The gentleman who traded them in said they both run and cut perfectly. I can head out and cut my winter's firewood with them. Well, that was not true. So what am I going to do with these? Some of you probably think I'm crazy right now. I'm still talking about these saws and looking at these saws. I just haven't given up hope yet for them. I've been thinking about them a lot. They've been keeping me up at night. Actually, last night, I think I had a nightmare about them. So at this point, I'm either going to sweep this whole table into the dumpster, or we're going to do one final attempt at putting one chainsaw back together here out of this mess. I have two boxes of parts sitting over here on the lift table. So you're going to see me again tomorrow, and we will either be putting a saw together, or I will move on to something new. This is purely for fun and entertainment now. Can I put this thing back together and go out and cut wood with it? I'm not going to sell this saw to anybody. I wouldn't do that to anybody. So you tell me in the comments what you would do if it was you standing here. I'm going to read all of your comments tonight, and I will see you guys tomorrow with some sort of content. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time.